the one other aspect is, which I wanted your thought is on the macro positioning. The belief was that India, and not just the belief, it was visible that India was playing geopolitics well, friendly ties with a lot of countries, so on and so forth. The only issue with India was valuations. And hence I come to you on that. We can remain unfairly cheap, yes. But if the only problem was valuations, and then in the last few months, the problem was, let's say, inaction, perceived inaction by the government or the regulator, and if that is also getting corrected, isn't that an antidote to an investor's sentiment? RBI has done what it could do, or probably more than what was believed. The government has done its little bit as well on the budget and otherwise. So actions are being taken. Isn't that an antidote?
Neeraj, valuations don't have muscles to lift markets. It kind of perhaps is a lubricant. It can almost assure you of good returns if you actually buy cheap, but it doesn't have the muscle. It can get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Because in the end, it's about faith in the asset class. And typically in bull markets, almost everyone that you think sort of likes equity as an asset class is already in. So I don't believe that cheap valuation is a sufficient condition of markets to recover. Invariably, what happens, Neeraj, is that an external force, be it from the point of view of geopolitics or let's say, large local policy measures, if they are actually entered in this sort of equation of market, then they can get lifted. So never, as they say, never sell sort of expensive just because it's expensive. Never buy cheap just because it's cheap. If you're a cyclical guy, if you're actually a structural guy, wanted to do an SIP or wanted to accumulate, because for 20, 30 years you want to stay invested in, then yes, absolutely, it's a decent time. You are a fair valuation or thereabout, maybe 5-10% more. But take a sort of a step back, Neeraj, on the valuation, whether it's cheap enough, because frankly, at 9-10% of nominal GDP growth or 9-10% of credit growth at 20 times, it's sort of equity math does not add up. On top of it, you have to accept the fact that the margins haven't rolled over yet, Neeraj. So if the buoyancy in the economy is going to be low as it's been, isn't it sort of a fair case to make that margins can mean revert? They are very, very stretched right now as we speak, do not correspond with 9-10% of nominal GDP growth at all. So if margins were to roll over, then, this whole case of India being a high ROE, could be threatened, because you would remember the 2014-19 setup, right? We were all wondering as to why this country was delivering 20-25% ROE in 2000s was barely sort of scratching surface at 12, 13, 14%.
Yeah.
So I understand that valuations have gotten cheaper relative to past. My general point is perhaps, for the macro setup, it could get cheaper for fundamental reasons also. But most importantly, in my view, that it simply doesn't have the muscle, to sort of lift the markets again. It's an insider. Insider is kind of a doped in this some sense, that he actually continues to do what he does, So if markets are moving up, the central tendency for the market, the inertia is actually to keep going up.
Yeah.
And on the reverse side, unless from outside someone shouts at it that, come on, don't do this, dude, he keeps going down. That's the way market sort of, if you were to think of market as an animated creature, it behaves like that.
Now, and viewers, this is a very valid point. I mean, last 5-6 years, if 5-6 quarters, if it's a 5% growth per se, then where is the pricing power for the corporate to actually lift margins? I mean, and therefore it's a valid point. One hopes margins don't roll over and really go down, but let's wait and watch. Maneesh, we'll have to wrap it up here, unfortunately, because of time constraints, but this is so good talking to you. Thank you for joining us and giving us your thoughts.